Welcome to the Real Estate Podcast, your go-to show for real estate success. Whether you're an agent aiming to crush it or a buyer or seller wanting the inside scoop, we're here to deliver expert advice, insider tips, and the real talk you need. Each episode, we chat with top industry pros to give you the facts, strategies, and inspiration you need to thrive in this business. Let's dive in and make big moves together. Good morning and welcome back to the Real Estate. Today I'm here with Roland Atlinger from Harris County Appraisal District, also we call it HCAD. And so thank you so much. I know you're busy. Thank you for joining us. Our whole purpose here is to get the facts out to the public, whether you're a homeowner or a real estate agent. And I really appreciate you being here and taking the time to do this. So welcome, Roland.
Well, it's my pleasure. And it was a pleasure meeting you at the Junior League that day that got this thing going.
Yeah, that was a great event. I'm
Yes,
so glad I got to sit next to you and learn who you are.
well, good deal. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've
Yes, please.
been in the real estate business for 40 years. I got out of college and started off as a real estate agent, and then became a real estate broker, and then stumbled into the appraisal business in Austin and ended up coming to Houston. And I've been at HCAD now for 36 years. Started at the lowest paying position. Now I'm at the top.
Wow,
And
a
the chief,
success
right?
story for sure.
Well, yes, and it's been a journey, and it's been a great dream. I sometimes have to pinch myself to see if it's real or not.
Oh my goodness. Well, I love to hear when someone actually loves their job. That's fabulous.
Oh yeah.
Well, it was a pleasure talking to you that day, and I've heard you speak before. So again, I appreciate you coming on with us here. So basically, your department or your organization is about determining value for taxing purposes for homeowners, correct?
That is correct. We are the largest appraisal district in the state of Texas, and I like to tell people we're the largest appraisal district in the galaxy that does a complete reappraisal every year. We appraise roughly almost 1.9 million parcels in Harris County.
Oh my gosh.
And when you look at two of the neighboring counties, you got Chicago, who is similar in our size, but they do a reappraisal every 3 years.
Oh,
They divide the area up in three. And of course, California, Los Angeles, they've got a lot more parcels, but they got a proposition that ties their increases not to market value, but it increases. The increases are tied to a factor. So
a factor.
they don't have the number of protests that we have, of course.
Wow. Yes. And so is it January or February you send out letters to people telling them their current taxing value?
Yes, what the Texas property tax code requires us to appraise all properties as of January 1st. And that is the market value, and that would be what a willing buyer, willing seller, or current market with the current market conditions and what they would pay for that. We do those values as of January 1st, and we send out the notices generally at the end of March, beginning of April, which of course sets up the most important deadline that I tell your listeners is May 15th, or 30 days after the appraisal notice has been mailed, whichever is the latter of the two. So that's one date that people should stick down and put it on their calendar, that May 15th is the protest deadline.
So at that point, if they disagree with anything, they can protest their taxes, correct?
That is correct. And what we tell people, we're not protesting taxes, we're actually protesting market value. Yes, the market value ties to the taxes, to your tax bill at the end of the year, but we're there to establish what that property would sell as of January 1st in that given year. With that being said, in the real estate market, most of your listeners are probably folks that buy and sell throughout the year, and there's actually an appraisal done for the loan purposes. And that's similar to what we have to do, but our statutory date is January 1st.
Yes. And a couple of years ago, it used to be that you could only file for your exemption, which I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, but you could only file for your exemption after January 1. Now you can file for your exemption as soon as you purchase the home, correct?
That is correct. The exemption deadline used to be January 1st through April 30th. And you had to be the owner and occupy as of January 1st for the general homestead exemption, and the legislature changed that recently in the session. So when someone buys a property, they actually can qualify for it the date they own and occupy that property, and they can file anywhere out of the 365 days of the year for that exemption. And that is an excellent question. And it used to be they did it for someone that was over 65, but now they've done it for everybody. So it's a good thing that the legislature did.
Yes, and just while I'm thinking of this, because I always tell my clients, in order to file for that exemption, their driver's license needs to match their address. So it's only for their primary living home.
That is correct. Another excellent, obviously you're an expert in the market yourself.
Not an expert, you're the expert, I'm just learning.
No, the requirement is that they have to have a Texas issued ID or a Texas driver's license, and that driver's license has to match the actual property that they're qualifying for that exemption. So, I guess for your listeners, anytime you sell a piece of property to a new buyer, notify them as soon as it closes, give them the form for them to get their driver's license changed, because that usually takes about 30 days. And then, of course, they then need to get that, because that will be one of the things that we'll ask for their exemption. There's some good things that are important about this exemption, is in that once they qualify for that homestead, their property is actually capped at 10% in the second year that they qualify. And we can go through some numbers if you'd like with regards to that. So that's one good thing that it does. The second thing is this last year in Senate Bill 2, they actually increased the homestead exemptions for a homestead from $40,000 to $100,000. So there was an additional $60,000 for the school taxes that the Texas legislature passed, that ended up costing the state about $18 billion. But it put a little cushion on the increases that we've seen, because as you know, Texas has been robust for the last few years, and we're finally getting to a point where the market is slowing down. Yes. And in fact, we had a 40+% of the properties for 2024 actually go down in value.
Well, that was one of my questions, because I've had a couple of years where my value went down. Of course, in 2008, a lot of things went down, but explain to those brand new homeowners what the exemption is, or what's the purpose of doing this? Why do they want to file that exemption?
Okay, another great question. The main thing is it reduces their tax liability. And if we were to look at a $400,000 house, and that's a little bit higher than the median and mean values in Harris County, but this for simplistic purposes, a $400,000 house in the city, the county, and HISD, without the exemption, they would pay close to $12,000 in property taxes.
Okay.
With the homestead exemption, they would, for those three jurisdictions, pay about $5,500. And then if they were a homestead and also over 65, they'd pay about $2,400. Wow. So those are major tax savings. And when you look at the state of Texas, we exist on a two-legged stool. All of our taxes are either from property taxes or sales tax, and that's the majority of our taxes. We don't have a state income tax, right. And that's why there's such a large burden on property taxes here in the state of Texas. It's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Depends on your point of view.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, you mentioned general homestead exemption. You mentioned over 65. I know there's at least one or two other exemptions out there available.
Oh,
you want to address that?
You are an expert in the market. After the
you flatter me, but I'm not really.
Well, after we had the wars in the Middle East, obviously our legislature took it seriously with some of our veterans coming back and having disabilities. With regards to the disabled veterans, there's also a disability exemption depending on the degree of disability with the Social Security Administration. So those are two of the main ones that exist. You also have surviving spouse of those exemptions also. So they're great things, and those are the equivalent of having an over 65 exemption.
Well, anytime we can help our military in any capacity, I think is wonderful. So
Oh yeah.
that's fantastic. And it's really easy to file for your homestead exemption. You basically go online to forms and fill out a form. Is that correct?
That is correct. What we have multiple ways for property owners to do this. One is if they have questions, we've got a video that's actually on our website. They can look at the video
Right.
and help them walk through the process. We've got a mobile app that's on Android and Apple. They can utilize that. Because we need to capture the picture of the driver's license of the front and the back. And the other one is they can go to our website and fill it out and make it a fillable form, attach the information and hit send, and then it goes to a queue for the exemption department to process those exemptions. So, or they can come in and visit us. We've got probably 60,000 people a year that just come in at our customer service department to talk about protests, exemptions, taxes, et cetera.
Well, that's fantastic. Well, that is a simple process. Well, why don't we talk about protests for a moment? You receive your value and you don't like it, you don't think it's right, whatever the issue is. What is the process for doing that?
Excellent question again. We send out that notice and we give you, we tell you what we think that value should be as of January 1st. And you can then look at that value, and people get sticker shock sometimes when the market's going up, and you can obviously file a protest. And what we suggest is we've got multiple ways for property owners to file their protest. We've got all types of flavors and how they can go through the process. But, you know, one thing that I would suggest to your listeners is your industry is service related. And, you know, I would call my favorite real estate agent and I'd tell them, hey, I want to get the proposals for my property. And then that can start the discussions with that property owner. And you can sit there and say, yeah, the appraisal district is off, or, you know, their value is pretty good. And that determination then leads the property owner to decide if they want to file a protest. In Harris County, we've got 1.9 million parcels. And of those 1.9 million parcels, about 800,000 are residential. The rest are commercial and business and personal property.
Wow.
We have about 500,000 accounts out of those 1.9 that will actually file a protest. And at that point, when that property owner gets that letter in the mail, they can go online, put their account number in there. They can file their protest with their iFile number, and they do this all electronically from their house. They can decide if they want to opt into what we call iSettle, where we resolve a lot of these cases with property owners without them leaving the comforts of their home. Because once we get the protest, and this was, I think in 2005, the legislature passed a law that we couldn't provide the sales to the public unless they filed a protest. And so the preponderance of the evidence is on our shoulder once we get that that protest in. And then that's when we put together the documentation for the hearing. And in that process, if the property owner had filed under iSettle, we review that and we generally give them an offer. If they like it, they can accept that offer, or they can come in and actually go in front of the ARB. And since COVID, you know, we used to do that with the property owner actually coming to our office. We now do these things online, electronically, from the comforts of the home. We do WebEx, Teams, you name it. We try to resolve them each and every way we can, because we've got a statutory requirement to get the ARB, you know, has to approve the roll, and then I have to certify that roll. And we can't have, out of those 500,000 protests, we have to have less than 10% of that value settled. So the truth and taxation component can start for the taxes that will then be associated. It's called the assessment and collection phases of the tax calendar.
Well, you certainly have a lot on your hands. And as a professional realtor, I want to say I'm happy to help anyone anytime. But to clarify, we're not appraisers. All we can do is tell you what homes in your area that are similar to yours sold for in the last year. So I just thought I needed to throw that out there.
Oh, yeah. And, and I tell people, they're the property owner. They're the most knowledgeable person of their property. And then with adding the sales that you provide, they then know their neighborhood, and then they get a good feel of, is the value right? Or do they think it's high? The other thing I'd suggest is when they're looking at filing protest is anything that they feel diminishes the value of their property. If they, and I know we probably have a second in a little bit to talk about a few things that I'd like to talk about
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
going on, but I don't know what we're limited to on time, but the main thing is whatever diminishes the value of their property, if it's repairs that need to happen inside, foundation issues, pictures, cost of these estimates to do these repairs, those are all great things for property owners to present if they feel that diminishes the value of their property, and present that to us when they have their hearing.
Excellent information.
And now time for a short break.
Hi, I'm Natalie Hartman, and I'm the owner and principal designer of Morph Home Staging and Design. At Morph, we specialize in vacant and occupied home staging, interior design, Airbnb and renovation design, as well as furniture rental for short and long-term rentals, which includes residential properties, assisted living communities, and model homes. For further information on these services that we offer, visit our website at Morph, and that's MORPHE, Home Staging and Design, or you can call us at 281-826-6744. We look forward to transforming your space.
Well, let's jump right in then to what you want to talk. What would you like to say?
Well, there's this misnomer that we just raise values every year at 10%, and that's not the case. We go out there, we look at the market, we study it. We've got roughly 7,000 residential neighborhoods out there. And I think when I look at 2021, 2022, and 2023, we were in the hottest market I had ever seen in the 4 years I've been in the business. You had interest rates low, you had low inventory, you had a lot of things in the variables that drive market value, and they drove them up. And because of that, that's when the legislature decided to add to the homestead exemption for the school districts. But this past year, we started to see, obviously, the effects of the interest rates going from 2.5% to 7.5%.
Mm-hmm.
And that a lot of people don't think of it this way, but when you look at a $300,000 house at 2.5% interest, your principal and interest, let's exclude taxes and insurance, your principal and interest is $1,200. Now at 7% interest, you run those same numbers and reverse engineer that $1,200 back to a present value at 7.5% interest. That person can only afford now a $170,000 house because of that change.
Right.
Well, that has taken a lot of people out of the market because we've seen the high increases of values over the last couple of years. The one other thing that I'd like to mention is the temporary disaster exemption. We've had a couple storms come through.
Yes, we have.
And the first one was called Derecho, sideways wind. I just remember it as sideways wind because the wind was coming down at sideways. And we had a couple tornadoes spark up in the county, and we had some houses that got demolished.
Yeah.
We also looked at the flooding, and we've got I tell people we've got the best GIS department in the nation. We've got the elevation levels of the properties, and we can then utilize the information from the flood control district, and we could determine if that property owner maybe suffered water in their house. So I took a proactive step and sent it to the geo-fenced areas where we saw the tornadoes existed. Mm-hmm. So we could see if those we knew some got demolished, but we sent out a letter saying, hey, you can do this disaster exemption, and it's in 4 tiers. They've got to have at least 15% damage. They've got 105 days from the disaster. So if the first one, they've got till September 3rd to apply. The second one is October 21st. And the application is on our website. All they have to do is go to the website, put in disaster exemption.
Fantastic.
So that's one that we definitely want to put out there on your podcast. And then the next one is Senate Bill 2 brought us some changes. And some of those changes, now we have elected board of directors on our board. And the board of directors, there's representation from Harris County, the city of Houston, HISD, school districts other than HISD, urban cities, conservation reclamation districts, and those are the MUD districts, the tax assessor collector. But we've got 3 new positions, position 1, 2, and 3 that were elected. And these are the folks that we just recently elected.
Mhm.
And they are on our board now also. So the point I'm trying to make with Senate Bill 2 changes, it changed the election for the 3 new board members in our county, but it also said that previously that ARB was appointed by the administrative district judge, but now the board of directors will go back to making those appointments. With that being said, the real estate market, a lot of the real estate agents that I know, it's the market slowed down, and y'all are experts in the field. And that's where the ARB is, we'll put out a press release at the end of August, beginning of September. And this is a position that is actually paid. Our board of directors are not paid, but the ARB are paid folks.
Interesting.
And they sit in panels of 3 or panel of 1, depending on what the property owner elects to do. But they can sit in on, that hearing, and they listen to the facts. They listen to the property owner's facts. They listen to the appraiser's facts, and then they determine a market of value.
Okay.
And that's called that is then the appraisal review board determination. And like I said, out of the 500,000 protests, we settle probably 75% without going to the ARB. The residual, about 120,000 to 140,000 accounts, go to the ARB, and they sit and listen to those cases. And at that point, if they're still not satisfied with their value, the property owner can go to district court. They can go to binding arbitration or SOA, State Office of Administrative Hearings. So there's multiple bites at the apple downstream also after they go to the ARB. But those ARB members will be sending out that press release end of August, beginning of September. They can apply for that position, and they get paid. It's a paid position, and they listen to the cases, like I said, and determine a market value of that.
Well, that's good to know. And it's good to know that all these, like you said, all these storms we've had and people have been hit left and right, this is actually something that can help them. So that's wonderful.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, what other things do you want to bring up to us that you think are important?
Well, let me we have a lot of stuff on our website, and years ago I started capturing, and this is just for some of the folks that just really get into value and stuff like that. But I had this GIS department that I have. If we would look at, if a value was going up, we would depict that property either we would depict that property in red, meaning the value was going up. If it was going down, we made it green, and if it stayed the same, we kept it yellow. And we've captured these maps over the years, and I like to tell people you can literally look at the map, and if it's all red, the markets are going up, and if it's green, the markets are going down, and if it's staying the same, it's yellow. And it's something, I don't know, I wasn't the smartest student in school, and so, but I can look at that map and I can determine what the market's actually doing.
Oh, that's very helpful. And yes, color coding, I'm all for that.
Yes, and then maybe one other thing that's not look. I mean, a lot of people don't understand the cap, and we talked about getting your homestead exemption, and then the second year you qualify for the cap. I think when you have a cap and you utilize that same $400,000 value that we were talking about with the exemptions and we go back to a hot market like we had a few years ago, where we saw increases of 20, 30, and even up to 40% in some submarkets. And that cap on that second year would be at 440,000. So the market value, let's just say that the market went up 30%. You're being protected because your tax liability can only go up 10%. So
that's good.
The second year it'd be 440, and the third year it'd be 484, and then the third year it'd catch up to its market value. So it's a second protection that you have.
Oh, that's good. That's good for all of us.
Absolutely.
Well, I do keep the podcast around 25, 30 minutes because in today's society, we all have short attention spans. But if there's anything else you would like to bring up, we have a couple of minutes before we have to sign off.
Okay, well, this isn't a fun job. I didn't grow up wanting to be a chief appraiser. I can tell you that. I've been the chief for 8 years. We've got major challenges, and we've got major challenges in that we've got the size, the complexity of our actual properties out here. When I look out my window, we literally make up almost 20% of the entire state when you look at property value.
Oh, my goodness.
And so if you look at the 254 counties, just this county represents 20% of the property value. People sit there and say, how do y'all compare to Dallas? I tell people, we're 5 times larger than Dallas. So when you look at the 20% of the value, we are encroaching almost $500 billion. And I say that it's like $865 billion. And that is a massive amount of value that we're responsible for. We don't have sales disclosure in the state. We've got the 2 largest cities without zoning. We've got one of the busiest foreign shipping ports. All that stuff that comes in on those ships. We've got the petrochemical industry. We've got the largest medical complexes. And there's just major challenges in this job, and they get more and more difficult every year. So,
Well, and you have so many people. I mean, you said you like 120,000 take their protest to the next step. My goodness, that's huge.
it is huge. And when we've got a state organization that we participate in a conference once a year, and when they hear about us, they are just shocked at that level. But there's also an International Association of Assessing Officers, and I've got one of their designations, and that in fact, I'll be meeting with the leaders of the large, similar size appraisal processors or assessors, like they call it in different parts of the state, and talk about the challenges that we all have, and this will be meetings with everybody that has large districts, which of course with large districts come major challenges.
Absolutely. Well, Roland, thank you so much for joining us today. You are a wealth of knowledge, and hopefully I can have you back on here sometime to talk about things more in depth.
Well, like I said, it was a pleasure meeting you that day at the Junior League, and I would be glad to do it again if you think it's worthwhile. And Jean, thank you very much for putting this together.
Absolutely. Roland Atlinger, I really appreciate it. And HCAD.org is the website. If you need forms or have questions, you can probably find the answer there. Thank you for tuning in to the Real and Real Estate Podcast. I hope today's insights have inspired and empowered you. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share the podcast with anyone who might benefit. Have questions or a topic you'd like us to explore? We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay informed, stay inspired, and keep moving towards success.